Welcome back to the Honest Hour. And we got another special guest here today. My special guest does a plethora of things. As I look through my notes, we'll go a little lightly. She has an Associate of Science in Human Services, Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, Masters in Public Administration, former Chair of Human Rights Commission, former member, Board of Directors, among other things. She's also the first woman of color to be voted into, what was it called again?
The Orange County Legislature.
It's in here, but I couldn't find it. I'm not going to lie. My guest today is the one and only Genesis Ramos. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Of course. I mean, I feel like it was the perfect time with you going up for re-election and all that. You know, it's good to have a face to put out there and not so much a face, but something to put out there for people to see you and hear you and get to know you, you know? We don't know each other that well, to be honest. Mm-hmm. We've seen each other at Jillian and Tevin's house quite a few times now.
Yeah,
so everyone who goes there is family. So we're family, but I feel like this is
by association.
Yes, yep. But this is gonna bring it in.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Before we get into the interview, I like to break the ice, and we're gonna play a little game. This game is called Honest Picks.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you two R&B artists.
Okay.
That's kind of just what I went with. I just said, who doesn't like R&B?
Love it. Let's go.
And you just tell me which one you like, one or the other. I think I got about 12 of them here.
Okay.
So the first one is musically only. Nothing.
Musically only.
This one specifically, because people will pick based on what one did.
Okay.
Usher or R. Kelly?
Usher.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Neo or Chris Brown?
Neo.
Okay. Mary J. Blige or Mariah Carey?
Oh, that's hard. I don't know that I could do.
If you're not sure, you can say both.
Both for sure. Yeah. You know, my girls both got it in different ways.
You know, exactly. I feel like Mariah is more of the natural singer, but Mary makes just the songs, the
hits, the classics.
And Mariah has them too. Don't get it twisted.
Absolutely.
But there's something about Mary, you know, not the movie, not the movie. Full disclosure, I'm actually going to see her in concert at the end of this month.
Oh,
Atlantic City.
That's fire.
Absolutely, I'm looking.
Gonna be good.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah. Neo and Mario are both going to be there too.
Oh, nice. All right.
So, gotta have a little bit of fun, right?
Yeah.
Aaliyah or Beyonce?
I don't want the Beehive coming after me now. All right.
As they will.
But my personal preference, Aaliyah. Yeah. I mean, I will say Beyonce is very talented and
absolutely.
You know, and it's one of those things where I don't know that there's really a true comparison between the two of them.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, the other thing is that now Beehive, don't come after me. If Aaliyah was still alive, Beyonce wouldn't be as big as she is. That's just
we don't know that. You know, there's room for
everyone.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes that's one of those situations where there's only room for one top dog. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and she did everything. Yeah. And I mean, she was a better singer. Don't come after me, guys.
No.
I'm just saying.
It, not me. Listen.
You know? Janet Jackson or Sade?
Sade. No disrespect to Janet, but Sade for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Jill Scott or Erykah Badu?
I love them both. Yeah, I love them both. They both got it. Like, they both have their, you know, just their essence, and
absolutely.
I feel like they both have contributed to R&B and like just neo soul in so many different ways. So yeah,
can't pick one over the other.
No.
Donnell Jones or Music Soul Child?
Similarly, I feel like I like them both.
They're both in my personal top 5. Like I love both of them.
Absolutely.
And their music is kind of like, it's like
and it never gets old.
Nope.
It's like timeless.
Nope. I can listen to it again and again and again.
Yep.
John Legend or The Weeknd?
I feel like they're in different kind of,
Different.
Yeah.
I don't know the word, but I know what you're saying.
Like, yeah. I mean, I feel like I like old school Weeknd more than, like I'm talking like, 2010 to like 2014 Weeknd, right? He's had some hits, but in terms of like that timeless classic kind of sound, I would say John Legend.
Fair enough. Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles?
Oh, I feel like that's another one where they're both like, I mean, first off, they both made significant contributions, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, I like them both, honestly.
Battle of the Blinds. That's what I call that one.
You know what? No.
I had a guest call it that. I can't remember who it was.
That is crazy.
And it has stuck. Battle of the Blinds.
Oh my God. Well, listen, Blind and all, like again, they did their thing.
Absolutely. Now this one I usually just do the 2, but I left Shaka Khan out of 1, so I'm gonna add her to this one. Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin, or Shaka Khan?
Ooh, that's also very hard. I feel like while they're similar in a lot of ways, they're also very different.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, and are part of different eras as well. So that's a little hard. I would say that was interesting. What was that? Was that like a little?
No, his phone is connected to this speaker. So.
I was like, was that like your time's up? Like you gotta pick?
Don't edit that part out.
Like some suspense, anyways. I gotta say, like, I really appreciate all of their music. Like, I don't think with the 3 of them, and I also feel like again they contributed in all significantly, but in different ways.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate, like, I can bump to them at different times and in different moments. You know,
different moods. Like depends on the
exactly.
Mood.
Exactly. Yeah.
The last one, Michael Jackson or Prince?
Oh. That one is also hard. I would say Michael Jackson though.
He definitely had the more memorable impact.
Yeah. Yeah, and in some, I mean, I think they both had that very kind of like, in their own very unique ways, right? They had that, what's the word I'm looking for? They were like very dynamic.
Yes.
They were very multi-dimensional.
Absolutely.
Their music brought out all kinds of feels and all kinds of vibes and moods and,
Absolutely.
And there was a lot of artistry that went into not just the music, but when you look at videos and things like that, like you can tell that there was just a lot of creativity that went into both of their
approaches. Lot of charisma,
a
lot of spunk, but I would never take my wife to go see Prince. He's the only man that can wear high heels and leave with her.
You know what? Oh my God. I mean.
Oh man, so. This is Mike Williams, host of Honest Hour. I want to let y'all know that today's episode is brought to you by Legendary Apparel by Kimaj the Creator. Kimaj draws inspiration from youth in his community, whether that be from high schoolers he teaches, his own children watching the shows he watched growing up. He uses the art he creates with his community and turns them into fashion statements. 845T is a great way to represent your hometown legendary fashion with the message of Good Kid, Mad City printed on the back represents not to judge a book by its cover. He grew up right here in Newburgh. This is his bread and butter. He's just a kid from Newburgh. I'm confident that LA by KTK is what you need. So if you need something from him, check out our sponsor. We're going to get into the interview. I hope you enjoyed that. That's always an icebreaker. Most people hate that game. I've had some people on here who've been ready to kill me.
Oh.
By putting certain artists together. I had one guest on here. She couldn't see the comments. This is when I was doing it still on Instagram. It's actually Mariah Henry. And like her mother was in the comments and just yelling at me in the comments. And I'm just like, I'm saying to her, she's like, what's going on over there? And I'm telling her, I'm like, oh, this person's mad. She goes, oh, that's my mama. I was wondering what she was screaming about in there. I was like, oh my God, you can't make that up. So, as you know, I did a lot of research. As we talked about.
Yes, you did.
We're going to just start from the beginning. The page, your website says that you're a I forget how it's worded. Lifelong, there we go, native of Newburgh.
Yes.
So you're born St. Luke's and all.
Born St. Luke's and all.
So what was growing up like for you in Newburgh?
Mm-hmm. So I spent most of my childhood on Hasbrook Street. I'm a proud daughter of immigrants. My family's from Honduras.
Okay.
And my parents came to the city of Newburgh in the late 80s. My family we were a low-income family. But I feel like my parents always instilled certain values, perseverance, hard work, integrity, honesty. And so I come from humble beginnings, which really most of us in this community do.
Absolutely.
And I feel like so much of that really did, not only did it shape who I am and continue to grow into, but it really also inspired my career path as well. So I have an older brother. I didn't meet my brother because my brother was born in Honduras. I was born here.
Okay.
So I actually didn't meet my brother until I was almost 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When he came from Honduras. And, me and my brother, that's my... we're super close. I have 2 beautiful nieces, and he was a big part of my upbringing and childhood too. Because the reality is that when my parents were working, my brother was there, right?
Absolutely.
He was there taking care of me, and he was just a real integral part of my childhood and my upbringing. Oh, wow. And I feel like my parents, they always, even though, we didn't, again, we had a very humble lifestyle. I never went without, right? Like my parents always found a way. They always made it happen. Like I remember when I was a kid, my parents would work full time. They would work their day jobs. My mom would come home, make dinner, we would eat. And then my parents had cleaning jobs at night. They would clean the Central Hudson building. They would clean some banks around here. Wow. And when you're a child and you're going with your parents, at that age and at that time, it's not clicking. It's not really, I'm not really in full understanding of the fact, wow, my parents are really hustling. They're working multiple jobs to
support the family,
to put food on the table. But they were taking me and my brother. I wasn't working. I was just in the offices, just following them around, playing around. But I was there. I was literally there as they were working hard. And, I grew up going through the Newburgh Enlarged City School District.
Absolutely.
Went to Temple Hill, went to North Junior High when it was North Junior High, and graduated from NFA in 2010, actually. And then, you know, the city of Newburgh is a beautiful community. It's very diverse. It's not in any way a monolithic community. You know, we have all kinds of people from all walks of life in our community.
All backgrounds, all different colors, shapes, sizes, you name it, we got it.
Absolutely. And it is a community with a lot of challenges, as we know, right? And so, you know, growing up, and I don't know if you grew up in the city of Newburgh, but you know, growing up, there was a lot of gang violence. There was just a lot of, unfortunately, just gang violence, you know, gun violence, and the city of Newburgh, as you're aware, like, unfortunately, there is a narrative that just surrounds the city of Newburgh. And although I grew up like hearing about these things and knowing that certain things were happening in our community, um, I also was able to experience our community in a different way. I was able to experience like having great neighbors and, you know, riding my bike, you know, up and down Hazard Street and Mill Street and going to the Mexican bakery around the corner and going to the laundromat and like just for me, even from a young age, it was like, yes, this is a community with challenges and there's things that that our community faces, but there's a lot of good here too.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, I think for me, it was a combination of seeing my parents, you know, being the kid that me and my brother helping my mom like read things and translate documents or go to the doctor with her and or my dad and like helping to translate in those appointments. Like this is real. Like this was so much of my childhood.
Wow.
You know, and I feel like there were small things in my childhood that made me kind of feel like or see and feel like that I was different. Right. Like and when I say different, I don't mean it in a way where I felt inferior in any way, but you could just see the differences between you and some of your classmates. Right. Like when I had high water jeans on and like Payless sneakers, right? Like, which shout out to Payless. Like,
I
you
wish
know,
we still had that.
Right. Like, look, like many of us have the experience. You remember when you go to Payless and then like I know my mom, she would make me walk up and down the aisle
make sure they
with
fit.
the shoes.
Yeah.
Like those are actually beautiful memories, you know. Those are things I hold near and dear to my heart. And I feel like having these humble experiences, because I remember, you know, when you're a kid and you see certain things like simple things sometimes, like kids being dropped off at the bus stop by their parents while my parents were working, you know, or like when you see kids with like, I don't know, like, you know, I was getting like the free school lunch, which
there's nothing wrong with that.
Right, nothing wrong with that. And it's actually a very important resource, by the way, right?
Absolutely.
But like you see kids coming with like the Lunchables and the Capri Suns, and you're like, it's small things like that again, like you kind of just know, like, oh, like, you know, the way that I live, that me and my family live, is different, right? And but it was always there was always pride, and there was always like there was always pride in that. My parents always like took pride in what they did and how they did it. And I never I never was you know, sent a message in our home that, I don't know, like that hold on, I'm trying to like think about how I want to say this. You know, like no matter what the narratives in the city of Newburgh, or that sometimes surround the city of Newburgh for many different reasons, my own upbringing, my own personal lived experience, you know, I always, like, especially like my parents both, and my dad in particular, always sent me the message that I could be whoever I wanted to be and do whatever I wanted to do, you know. And so I really felt just a sense of commitment to public service, to others, and to our community in particular.
Wow. Wow. I loved that answer. It was deep rooted and from the heart, and it covered so much. Because now it kind of creates like a leeway. Because even though you went through all that, is that childhood what enabled you to start thinking, okay, not so much, how can I put this? It enabled you to say, okay, I don't want to live like this my whole life. And if I have children and get married, I don't want them to live like this either. So I guess what I'm really getting to is, when did you make the condescending decision to start doing all these different things? Because I got them right here. Just for the audience, let me tell you, I got written here just like this. Because the question I said is, when did you decide you wanted to begin public service, and why that business? So I'm going to break this down. I got written here, and excuse me if I forgot some stuff. Associate in Science and Human Services, Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, Masters in Public Administration. Also, a lot of community involvement. Former Chair, Human Rights Commission, former co-chair, Save New Version Strategic Economic Development Advisory Committee, former member, Board of Directors, Safe Harbor of the Hudson, former member, Board of Directors, Newburgh Ministry. That's everything that I've seen. I might have missed something. So, with that being said, is that what caused you to really go down that rabbit hole of just, and congratulations on all that, because
Thank you.
I'm telling you, that takes a lot of school, a lot of time, and just really a lot of being in the right place. So is that really what garnered that decision? And if you could kind of sum up what some of these things do, or what you did with them,
No
in
problem.
a sense.
Yeah, so appreciate that question. It is a mouthful, and really, what is behind all of that was me realizing what my purpose is, right?
Oh, you said the magic word. Everyone
And
knows. Everyone knows why. Go ahead.
yeah. So when I was a senior, a lot of people are like, I applied here and I got accepted here, and people are like, can't wait to go away and like just leave
Right.
home, right? For me, I couldn't afford it. Like, simply put, I couldn't afford it.
Okay.
It was not really an option for me to go away to school. And like, truthfully, in high school, I was just an average student. Like, I wasn't, in honors and all that. Like
Right.
that, I was just an average student, quite frankly. And I don't say that in a way to like put myself down. I'm just keeping it real, right?
That's what it was.
And so I knew that I didn't want to put myself in like hundreds and thousands of dollars of debt to go away to school.
Absolutely.
And also I knew that I wanted to, all I knew at that time, 18-year-old me, senior in high school, was like, all I knew at that time was that I wanted to help people, right? Like, I didn't know what exactly that would shape into, but I just knew at that time that that's what I wanted to do.
Absolutely.
And so I found the human services program at SUNY Orange. And it was perfect because it was local, it was a community college, it was affordable, it was accessible. And I went, and there was one professor there, his name was Professor Panesi, and he truly just he just completely radicalized me and really put at the forefront so many facts and so many things that were not actually taught in the public education system in this country, right? I really started to understand some of the systemic reasons and like the systemic flaws that lead to so many of the inequities and disparities in this country,
Wow.
not just in our community, like in this country.
Bigger picture.
Bigger picture, and like really understanding what is at the core and the root of some of these disparities, right? So that was the foundation, if you will, right? That
Absolutely.
program, me going through that program, I actually got the opportunity to do internships at different nonprofit organizations in the city of Newburgh.
Okay.
And so that's really kind of how it all started for me. I was 19 years old and I started doing internships at some of the local nonprofits and getting an understanding of um, the nonprofit world, getting an understanding of different services and organizations in our community. And then I decided, once I finished my associates,
Right.
I decided to go to SUNY New Paltz to get my bachelor's. And I got my bachelor's in sociology with a concentration in human services. So I kept that like human services as a foundation because,
Okay.
again, like I wanted to be in public service. Like I knew that, again, I didn't know exactly what, but I just knew that I wanted to be, in public service work. So when I was in SUNY New Paltz, I did more internships in the city of Newburgh. So I ended up, throughout my time in my undergraduate studies, I ended up doing 4 internships at 4 different nonprofits in the city of Newburgh.
Wow.
And when I graduated from SUNY New Paltz, I actually got like my first big girl job out of college. Right? Like I graduated, and the next week I started working at what was then called Safe Homes, what is now called Fearless, which is a nonprofit organization which provides services to victims of domestic violence and human trafficking. And that was like, I was a bilingual advocate there. And so that was like my first kind of real introduction to working, advocating for other people. I was, going to court with some of our clients.
Wow.
I was going to DSS with some of our clients. So that was like that being in that role and in that organization really it was very eye-opening for me. And being in that specific organization and more specifically in that role, I realized that doing direct service work, like one-on-one work, it's a lot. It's
Absolutely.
a lot. And
Very hands-on.
You're dealing with a lot of, honestly, you're dealing with just a lot of, you're dealing with other people's traumas. You're dealing with other people's struggles and challenges. And sometimes things can be very dark, So I made
it's hard. I'm sorry. I just have to
Yeah, no, you're
put
fine.
in. It's hard to not take some of that with you.
100%.
It's, you
100%.
even though you're not going through it, just being in the pit of that every day, it's hard. I just had to.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And so then I decided to make a transition into healthcare, not clinical, because I can't do blood and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, you're like,
yeah.
there's only so much I can do.
Yeah. But what I did do is I went into medical case management, and I was working specifically with individuals living with HIV. And so I spent 5.5 years in that organization doing a lot of work around sexual and reproductive health care. So that was my introduction really to community outreach and community engagement work. So like literally being out in the community, and educating and informing people and around sexual health and reproductive health. And I was in that organization for 5.5 years, and I kind of, moved up, and I became a manager, and I was overseeing some positive youth development programs and connecting youth to sexual and reproductive health care services. And then I ended my time there in administration, actually, in that organization. During that time, I was feeling like I wanted to be more connected to the community.
Okay.
I wanted to be more involved. So I started volunteering. I would just volunteer at events, or I would just, yeah, do cleanups, things like that. And then I started just doing a lot of research and really informing myself of what are the other ways that I can contribute in my community, right? Like I volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
but like what are other ways in which I can show up? And then that's when I decided to join some of the city of Newburgh boards, the Human
Mm.
Rights Commission, and then ultimately the Economic Development Advisory Committee, which I'm still on and I still serve on. And I during this time I was able to understand a lot more around like government, right? Not
Okay.
also being in healthcare, by the way, healthcare and being in healthcare gave me a front row seat as it gave me a front row seat to just to how messed up the healthcare system is in this country, and that at the core and at the root of what is so flawed about the healthcare system in this country is the policies behind it. It's
Mm.
it's the special interest groups, the lobbying, and the money that goes into right politicians' campaigns,
Right.
right? From insurance companies, from pharmaceutical industry, right? And then you start putting all these pieces together and you start realizing like, wow, at the heart of this and why so many people don't have access to healthcare, can't afford their prescriptions, and why we see so much inequity, particularly within the Black and Brown communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
With healthcare outcomes, whether whether you're talking about heart disease, sexual and reproductive health care, cancer, you name it, you're always going to see statistics that show that specifically in communities like Newburgh, for example,
Right.
right, we have very disproportionate health outcomes, and it's not a coincidence, right? It's not a
Not at all.
coincidence, and so my time in healthcare is actually what led me to understand the importance of policy and just how policy drives so much of our lives. Whether we're talking about education, healthcare, housing, you name it, there is policy behind that. There are laws, there are regulations, there are there are decisions being made at tables,
Mm-hmm.
right? That are impacting our lives from the federal level down to the local level of government. And so when I joined those boards for the city of Newburgh, that was also a time where I was able to make those connections even deeper.
Mm.
Um, Also, being in healthcare, understanding public policy more is what led me to get my master's in
Okay.
public administration.
'Cause you're like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Like you might as well just keep as you're learning. It's just like you can get more out of what you're doing with each degree.
Yeah, and I think also for me, it was wanting to expand because remember, I did all of my undergrad in sociology and human
Mm-hmm.
services, and so I got a really good understanding of things from a sociology perspective. But I wanted to move more into um, understanding, uh, governance and budgeting and policy and um, organizational culture things and things around ethics, things around like how do we analyze data, like so that's actually what led me to get my master's in public administration, which I finished in the thick of COVID. So
Oof.
I literally had to do like my theses, my capstone on Zoom. I remember, but I was working full time. I was serving on boards, and I was getting my master's, and I graduated summa cum laude. I graduated with a 4.0 GPA.
Yeah, let's
So,
let's have it. Let's have it.
so
So for anyone out there who doesn't believe you can do a million things at once and accomplish them, that's a story right there. That's
Thank you.
inspirational in more ways because a lot of people are cognizant of not being able to do one thing.
Hmm.
But you just named like 12 things, and you kept it in line, but you found your purpose and you had a vision and you envisioned what you wanted.
Hmm.
And it seemed like as the further you went on, you kind of navigated what you wanted.
Yeah, 100%. And I think to that end, there's two things I'll say. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I think it's very important to say that
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes when people see, like, they'll see you being accomplished, they'll see your success. And I feel so fortunate and just I'm so grateful for all of the experiences I've been able to have, the ways in which I've been able to serve my community, and just the success that I've been able to have in my life. And I also recognize that we are forever learning. We are forever understanding who we are, what the world around us is,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay to reinvent yourself. It's okay to want to switch it up in your career, in your life, right? Like,
Absolutely.
it doesn't have to be like one straight path all the way. Like, I was figuring a lot of things out as I was getting exposed, as I was understanding how things worked. Um, and so for me, public service was really, yes, rooted in my own lived experience, my childhood growing up in this community, but also the more I gained understanding around just how, again, how the systems worked, how public policy impacts and influence so much of
Mm-hmm.
our lives and our quality of life. Like, that just kept bringing me closer um, to wanting to be on these boards, to
Right.
and I actually, outside of these boards in 2020, I did consulting for the city of Newburgh around DEI, around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And through that process, I was able to really influence how the city of Newburgh actually hires and their hiring process
Wow.
in the city of Newburgh for city of Newburgh employees. And it's things like that, there's like certain contributions that I'm very proud of, yes, but one of the things I always think about is like, what is my impact going to be, right? Beyond me being in a seat or having a certain specific role.
Right.
Like, what is my impact going to be? What kind of fingerprints are you leaving behind? Like, what's your
Mm-hmm.
legacy, right? Because I'm not always going to be in that
In that
in that
position.
role, in that position, in that space. But how am I making things better for the next person?
Right.
How am I creating lasting impact? And that's really so much of what guides me. That's so much of what my North Star is. It's like, understanding that this has always been bigger than me and it will continue to be bigger than me, no matter, what iteration this continues to take on. And so after I left the organization where I was, doing all the healthcare work, I actually at Mount St. Mary College, I was the founding executive director for the community center there, the Desmond Center for Community Engagement and Wellness. And I joined there. Crazy enough, it was crazy. Like, I got hired there
Right.
and elected within a week.
Oh, okay.
With-
Talk about an impact.
within a week, right? And I walked into that role with like this knowledge around and my passion for just health equity. And at that time, I already had my master's. I had served on different boards, including nonprofit boards at that
Yes.
time. And I came in and I came into a literal PDF of a grant that the college had been awarded to establish the center.
Nice.
And I took that PDF and we were able to launch the center, get programming off the ground, get the team together, create partnerships with other community organizations.
Wow.
And the center is still there to this day. Shout out to the Desmond Center at Mount St. Mary College that's now being run by a good friend, someone that I respect so much that worked with me, Ashley, and she's doing a wonderful job. She's been keeping up the programming. It's free health and wellness services for the community. Anyone can access them. There's a monthly calendar that has all the different programs and events that happen. And again, they're all free and open to the community. So anyone is welcome, yoga, Pilates, CPR training classes. Like, we created a foundation for this. And I'm, that's another thing, outside of, and the reason I'm sharing this and like just giving so much context is like, yes, I'm an elected official. Yes, I'm a legislator, and I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
And outside of that, it's the, it's the I'm true to this, not new to this, right? And I say that with so much pride because I understand the importance of being connected to your community and being present to your community and contributing to your community in ways, again, that will have that lasting impact and that will have that lasting influence. And to your point, like, people are always watching, and that's something that I've learned. Absolutely. People are always watching. People are always seeing. It's, the amount of opportunities I've had to speak with youth, for example. There are so many moments where I recognize that, again, this is so much bigger than me. And so right now I have the privilege of being an elected official and being in a role like that. And I know that regardless of where life takes me and whatever comes next, my commitment to public service is unwavering. It's always going to be there.
This is Mike Williams, host of Honest Hour. This episode is brought to you by Classic Cloth. If you're just looking for comfort, quality all year round, look no further than Classic Cloth. And guess what? As a valued listener, you will get an exclusive deal. Use our code KEEPITClassic, classic also spelled with a K, at checkout for 10% of your purchase. Support the show. Elevate your wardrobe by shopping with Classic Cloth today. Head over to classiccloths.us, snag your favorites now. Keep it classic. Thanks for supporting our sponsors. They make this podcast passable. Now back to the show.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're sharing this information because one thing that I can say is, okay, it's one thing that when there's a problem, like I'm going to use where I got it from. I don't know how into sports you are or football, but do you remember when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee? Right? Now, people got upset with him for that. But people didn't get upset when Tim Tebow did it. See, now, when he did that, he got blackballed from the NFL. He hasn't played since. Yep. Now, Jay-Z joined the NFL some years back on the board, and pretty much he controls the halftime show, which is why more artists that look like us are on that show. Now, people were upset with Jay-Z for joining that board. But he said during that meeting, he goes, okay, we have a problem. But what's our deal? What do? We have to bring attention to it. So by you sharing all this information, I'm pretty sure people are going to watch this back and be like, I didn't know that. I can use this. I can use that. That's what this platform is for. So this season specifically is bringing on people more with stories, more who have this kind of information that's condensate to the community because it's important. I remember, I got to get Mayor Harvey on this show. And I remember when he first got elected, he had all these plans. He had all these ideas, and they were good ideas. And I said to him, he talked about a plan to give businesses more money, small businesses to start their business in Newburgh. I said, if you can't help get the crime rate down, none of that's going to happen. And, my uncle and him were close growing up. I do my sports podcast with his nephew. He was my teacher. I think he was everyone's teacher, So I just said, think about that. And then I noticed he started doing programs to get guns off the street. I noticed he was out there marching and talking to people and doing all those things, being active. And then I'm driving down Newburgh one day, down Broadway rather, and I'm just noticing all these businesses I hadn't seen. And I knew his plan was working. And just from that conversation, and the last time I saw him, we spoke about that, and he goes, I do remember that. And he was like, in full disclosure, he goes, He goes, man, I'll tell you, we were at Newburgh Illuminated, or however you say
Illuminated.
I always wanted, I don't know why I always pronounce it that way. The last one they had, that was the last time I seen him and actually had a conversation with him. And he's like, full disclosure, he goes, I'm loving it. I was seeing white people jogging down here. I just said, oh man. He's like, but it's good. And I said, that's definitely a step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So it's good to have that and bring that information to the people, because you never know who could use that information. Mm-hmm. So with that being said,
100%. Well, I think to that end, it's important that when you have a seat at the table, that you understand the responsibility
of that seat.
I mean, that's a responsibility, right? It's a privilege and a responsibility, and it's one that I sure don't take lightly, and that I think anyone in decision making and leadership roles should really hold that level of integrity and that standard, because at the end of the day, we are where we are in service to the people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's a testament as the next thing here. Ooh, hold on. Is you have won an award. 40 under 40 award. Mm-hmm. Now, to me, to be under 40 and well under 40, it's not like you're like 38 just winning this award. 39, gonna be 40 next week. You're well under 30. I don't know your age. I'm not gonna ask, but you're well under 30.
I'm actually a little over 30, but
I meant under 40. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
Well under 40.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Oh, that's what I meant. Oh, see, we ain't perfect.
Of course not. No one is. Uh-huh.
What was it like to win that kind of award? Because I'm sure there were, from what I read, there was quite a few people who got this award or had the honor of winning this, is the right words, I should say. What was it like? Because, something like that, it's just like, man, I put in the work and it's been recognized. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And especially, considering in your position, like I said before, you're the first woman of color to be voted into your position. Mm-hmm. That
and the first woman to represent my district.
And the first, oh wow, maybe that might have been oversight. Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. So it's like double, and then you're winning this award. Just how do you feel being that you were able to accomplish all that? And what was your feeling when you found out you received the award and when you actually received the award?
So I've actually gotten 2 40 under 40 awards.
You know what's messed up?
He said, you know what's messed up.
I wrote 2.
All good.
I wrote 2. And I just didn't read it. I got ahead of myself. I got excited. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. So I'm going to, really lead with my truth right now, which is that I think oftentimes, again, people see you in a certain spotlight, in a certain position. And I think it's, there's assumptions made, right? There's certain ways in which you're kind of characterized when you are in a public role, in a public facing role. But the truth of it is anyone that really knows me knows I'm actually quite introverted. I'm actually someone who has often shies away from spotlight. Right. Because even as an elected, when I go to events, I'm not looking for the camera and the mic. I'm talking to people. I'm in the.
You're in with the community,
right?
You're like, no, I don't need that specifically. If you have to, it's one thing, but you rather be congregating with the people because that's who, like you said, you represent.
That's who we're in service to. And I also think a lot of it has to do with my upbringing and just the way I was raised and just being raised and instilled in me that humility and being humble. And I absolutely believe, like, for me personally, humility is important. And I've also really come to understand the importance of taking up space and the importance of what it means for us to be able to be not just be in the spaces, but then be recognized for our work and to be
Absolutely.
able to have the praise and the appreciation for the work. So the first 40 under 40 award I got was more of a Hudson Valley regional
Okay.
one through the Dutchess County Chamber of Commerce. And that one, again, it was folks from different parts of the Hudson Valley, from all walks of life and different industries and different fields. At that time, I was already elected. I was at that time the executive director at the center. And, I it felt really special to be acknowledged for the hard work and to know that there was appreciation there for my contributions. And I think, like, also that was my, let me see, I want to make sure I get the sequencing right, because I also have gotten an award from the Orange County Democratic Committee, the Orange County Democratic Party,
Nice.
for for being a young leader in politics. So I'm trying to get the sequencing right of which one I got first, but because I got them both in the same year. Nonetheless, that year I got two awards, and it was actually my first time getting awarded. Like, I
Wow.
hadn't gotten awards before.
Wow.
Right? So, like
not even like in school or anything?
no.
Wow.
Yeah. I had never gotten awarded before. So I think in that moment, in that time, which was in 2022, it was actually really, really nice to experience that. And again, it just, for me, further reiterated the importance of what it means to be able to take up space, and that when you are in a not just when you have a position, but then also when you have the opportunity to be recognized for your work, like, you better own that with integrity. And also, just for me, what has always felt important is just to be real, to be genuine.
Absolutely. Be who you are.
Just be, like, which is hard when you are in a public facing role. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And I've always led with that. So to me, an award, it's an accolade. It's something that reflects my hard work. And it's something that I want other people in our community to experience, other people in our community to have.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important for other people to see, people that you went to school with, your neighbors, people that you see at the the pizzeria, the coffee shop, that they're like, that they can see you, that you're reachable.
Absolutely.
And that they see that you're able to do these things, and that it doesn't matter where you come from.
Right.
That's not, that doesn't
define who
you are, and it doesn't determine how far you can go. Right?
Absolutely.
And then my second 40 under 40 award actually was last year. And that one, I got it from SUNY New Paltz, my alma mater. Ooh. So I got awarded last year, 40 under 40. And, that was beautiful because I graduated from SUNY New Paltz. And so to be recognized by one of the, higher education institutions that I graduated from, and that really helped to shape my understanding and who I am, where I had great mentors and great professors. That also was really special because, again, when you're a student and you're going through this program and you're figuring out, like, what do I want to do, and what is, how is this going to shape up for me? you're not thinking that, 9 years later after you graduate, you're going to be awarded for your
Right.
accomplishments.
You're thinking about that at that moment.
Yeah.
You're right there, like, I'm about to do this. And then,
Mhm.
and not for nothing, SUNY New Paltz is not an easy school to get into either.
Mhm.
That's another thing people don't know.
It's a really great school, and I would recommend it. Like my whole, when I went to SUNY Orange, SUNY New Paltz, Marist, I commuted because I had to work. Like I've been working.
Right.
And so, but I had a wonderful experience at all of these different schools. I really genuinely did.
Wow. And
Yeah.
and it's a note to say, like, it's not easy to work and go to school.
No, absolutely not. Let me tell you, that master's program was it was brutal. It was hard. It was really hard because it's different. I was also like in my later 20s, and so like I didn't have the 21-year-old brain. Like it was different. Like I had different responsibilities.
Right.
Like, I was a director at my job at the time. I was serving on boards. I was involved in the community. Like I was already in a lot of things.
Right.
So it was a challenge, but it was not impossible.
And you did it.
And I did it.
And now here you are, years removed from that, and you have just recently announced, not too long ago, so congratulations on winning that award, both of those awards, all three of those awards you just named.
Thank you.
As you've reached, you're up for re-election. You've announced recently.
Mm-hmm.
How is your campaign going?
So my campaign is going really well, actually.
Great.
It's when I ran 4 years ago, I ran because I understand the importance of representation. And yes, having representation that looks like us, that's one part of it. But the reality is that, black and brown faces in high places won't always save us. And it's just the truth, right? Like I say that because we need to be real about the fact that it's deeper than just how someone looks.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of it. And it matters, especially in a community like the city of Newburgh, town of Newburgh, where you have so much diversity.
Absolutely.
Representation matters. And it also matters from a point of your integrity, your experience, your commitment, your ability to collaborate, your ability to be, to just lead and to lean in, because this kind of role and this world, it really demands a lot from you. It demands that you are courageous. It demands that you are present. It demands that you are informed. It demands that you show up, right? And it demands that you are also able to honor perspective. That even when you are so ideologically removed from someone else, that you are able to really and truly understand where other people come from. And now I have my non-negotiables, right? Like I have my things that are hard lines where there's no understanding for me, right?
Just this is it. This is as
That
far
is
as it
it.
goes, and
that's important, because while it is important for us to practice, tolerance and compassion, acceptance, etc., it's also important to protect our mental health, our sanity, and just to know like where your values are,
right.
where you have to draw the line for yourself, right? You have to stand for something. If not, you fall for anything.
Fall for anything.
Right? And so for me personally, I have, when I ran 4 years ago, passion with a plan was and is my tagline. But it's not just a tagline. Mm-hmm. It's a literal guiding principle. It's a way of being. It's me. For me, it means like, yes, I'm passionate and I'm walking in my purpose. And passion is just a part of what is needed to show up and take up that space.
Oh.
Right?
Ooh,
you have to be able to be, again, You have to be strategic. You have to be flexible. You have to be collaborative. You have to know how to build coalitions, connect to different kinds of people from all walks of life. You have to be willing to make yourself uncomfortable. You have to be willing to hold yourself accountable and understand when and where you have gone wrong.
Right.
Right? Because I haven't always gotten it right. I can admit that.
No one has, and no one ever will.
Right. And I think that when you have that kind of responsibility, being an elected official, literally voting on things, that is a huge responsibility and a privilege and an honor that should never be taken for granted in any way. So from the time I ran 4 years ago, got elected, and have been in my seat, I've really taken this with like just the utmost seriousness and dedication. And I've experienced a lot. There's been a lot, Orange County, the Orange County Legislature, just to give everyone an idea, there's 21 legislators. I'm part of what is referred to as a minority caucus, meaning that we are in the minority of the partisan groups in the legislature.
I got you.
I'm one of 5 Democrats, one of 5 out of 21 legislators. So as you can imagine, as you can hear rather, we're very outnumbered.
Yeah.
Right?
Big time.
Because this county, the partisan lean is a certain way, and that's obviously evident. There is what is referred to as one party rule in this county. All the countywide elected officials, your county executive, your county sheriff, your district attorney, your county clerk, are all from the Republican Party. So I give that context because it's important, because oftentimes folks don't always understand, and I get it because I didn't understand either until I wasn't really in it, right?
When you started seeing things, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. What that means, though, just to put it simply, is it limits what you can do from like a policy perspective, right? Because you need votes. If you want to pass things, you need votes. Right. And so for me, I quickly came to just like it was a moment where I'm like, okay, I may be outnumbered, right? But that is not going to stop me from doing what I was elected to do.
Right.
And it's not going to stop me from showing up, and it's not going to stop me from advocating. It's not going to stop me from building the relationships with our state and federal representatives. It's not going to stop me from, lobbying and going up to Albany when I need to. It's not going to stop me from showing up at city council meetings.
Nope.
It's not going to stop me from calling out corruption in Orange County government. It's not going to stop me from building relationships across the aisle with people that I have been able to, build relationships across the aisle with. And I really took it on, not in a way where I felt inferior or allowed myself to feel powerless, which is kind of easy to do, which is, by the way, what we're seeing at the national level.
Yes.
Because right now Republicans have the presidency, the House, right, the Senate, and so
they have it all.
They have it all. And so the last thing I want to hear from anyone on the other side is saying, we don't have leverage, we don't have power, we don't have no. There's still so many ways in which you can show up. And that's what I've committed myself to throughout my term. And as a result of that, I've been able to get certain things done. I'll give you just a few quick examples.
Sure.
Last year in the legislature, we went through a process called redistricting. Redistricting happens every 10 years. It goes hand in hand with the census that happens every 10 years, which is an effort to basically collect population and demographic data of across the country.
Okay.
And this data feeds into how our districts and our wards and how different electoral districts are literally shaped. And so that's what determines our representation. Simply put, it's what determines our representation, because lines are drawn and maps are drawn in a way that determine who can run where. And the reason this becomes so important is because depending on how lines are drawn, that is really going to that is what's going to determine who's going to represent you, not just if it's going to be a Republican or a Democrat, but depending on your community, if you're even going to be able to have a diverse candidate, right? So this is historical. This is why we have laws that protect communities and voters around this, so that lines cannot be drawn in ways that favor incumbents or that favor specific parties on either side, or that, but unfortunately we still see issues, right?
Yeah.
But last year we went through that in the county. So the legislative districts were redrawn in all of Orange County. And what was happening was they were trying to take a part of my current district, which is like the Lake Street area, like all the Lake Street apartments, the Mullins, the Kennys.
Yeah.
They were trying to take all of that and put it into a New Windsor district.
Oh.
And so I knew immediately, like, I just knew, I'm like, that is literally, one, we're talking about two different communities with just different needs and different municipal governments. Like, there was just so many issues. By the way, just from a literal voting perspective, those folks, they vote at the activity center. They can literally walk to go vote. If we're putting them in a New Windsor district, that means they have to go vote somewhere in New Windsor. And what if they don't have transportation?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're talking about impacting the way in which people are literally having access to vote. And so I went to bat and fought to keep the city of Newburgh within a Newburgh district. And so with redistricting and the new maps, the city of Newburgh stayed with the city of Newburgh. So that's like one thing, for example. And like, these are things that the everyday person is not really paying attention to. I understand that. I recognize that. But again, going back to what I was talking about
Right.
how do you create lasting impact? How do you ensure that even beyond your time somewhere, that you know that you've done your best to leave things a certain way? That's a prime example right there. Because that's going to impact how this community votes for the next decade.
Right, because now it can't be moved or it can't
Correct.
be changed.
Correct.
And that's why when people go out there and they say go vote for your local government,
Absolutely.
and go vote for on the state level every year or what have you, and people don't go and vote, then you wonder why
certain things happen.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. At the local level of government, and particularly in this moment in time, in this moment in history, local leadership matters more than ever before. More than ever before. When we're talking about things like housing and job creation, employment, transportation, utility, like there's just so many infrastructure, economic development. These are issues that your local government, your city council, your town board, your county legislature are having way more impact than your state elected officials are, and way more impact than your federal elected officials in DC are having on these issues.
Absolutely.
Local government is so important because that is where the decisions are made for quality of life, for our kitchen table issues, for the bread and butter issues that we talk about and we care about, our parks, our schools. That is being decided here locally, not
Absolutely.
in DC, not in Albany, right? Of course, there's votes from DC and from Albany that trickle down and impact, whether it's funding, laws, regulations, etc. But like the actual quality of life, like those things are being decided here locally. Local government matters so much. And unfortunately, voter turnout in our community is very low. Very. I'm talking abysmal sometimes. And I recognize there's a lot that goes into that, right? That's not coincidental either. I recognize it, which is why for me, it's not just when I ran in 2021 or because I'm running for re-election right now,
Right.
but that's why it's been important for me to be out, for me to be outside, because people need to know you're out there, you're with them, you're for them, and not just during election cycles.
All the time.
Exactly.
Like today you're going out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Exactly.
you're going out there today. And I was obviously during research, I see you outside taking the pictures, acknowledging the people, giving them the information. And that's the thing that people don't understand is they come around every 3 to 4 years during election time, like vote for me. But it's kind of like, okay, you want me to do that, but what have you done in that time?
Right.
Not only have you been outside and you've been with the people and congregating with the people, you've done things to help the people. And people see those things and they're cognizant of that. And they're like, no, she's doing the right thing. Not to mention, typically when you do things like this, the first 4 years, you're just trying to get a track.
Oh, yeah.
You're just trying
learn.
Yes.
Because it's a lot. Let me tell you, it's a lot. And I'm not, Orange County has basically $1 billion budget that we have to go through and vote on every year. And in that budget, we're talking about, our Department of Social Services, our Department of Health, Corrections, District Attorney's Office, like the whole Veteran Services. There's every county department we're voting on, we're looking at. And to that end of like what you're saying, that there's a learning curve. Yes, there is. And the reality is, even though there's a learning curve, you still have to do what you were elected to do.
On top of that,
right? So I go back to just sharing some of the things, in 2023, me and a couple of a few of my colleagues, we stood alongside a state senator that represents most of Orange County, Senator Skoufis, and we called out corruption in the county. And as a result of that, let me tell you, we faced a lot. We faced
scrutiny, I'm sure.
We were threatened to be sued for defamation. And that was just an attempt to silence and intimidate us, to keep us quiet.
Scary.
Right? And then the county turned around, and because remember, one party rule, right? The county turned around and said, you guys are on your own. We're not going to represent you. We're not going to indemnify you. They literally told us that when we held the press conference to talk about and discuss the concerns we had around what we suspected to be corruption, that we weren't in our elected official capacity. They tried to say that we weren't legislators at that time. Well, we had to turn around and we had to sue the county, because we were like, actually, you're wrong. We are legislators, right? We are elected by the people. You don't get to tell us when we are or are not elected officials just because we spoke on something that you didn't want us to speak about, right? And so what ended up happening is we ended up winning the lawsuit.
Nice.
We ended up winning that lawsuit, and the judge ruled that the county was absolutely wrong. And guess what? The lawsuit never happened. Never happened. It was never going to happen. It was always just a tactic to intimidate and silence us for speaking up and speaking out. But again, it's a responsibility to be in that seat. You have to speak truth to power. If not, what are we doing? What are we doing there?
You're doing nothing. Because if you would have stayed silent, you become part of the problem. 100%.
100%. And I think, people want to know that you are fighting for them in all the ways, right? For example, just last month, I really, because of my leadership and the leadership that I was able to have working with folks across the aisle, we established a first of its kind housing task force in county government.
Oh, wow.
It was voted on unanimously. It's a bipartisan effort. And the task force is really a dedicated legislative committee that's going to be focusing on how, there's a housing crisis. It's not just Orange County or New York State. It's a national problem. It's a national crisis. But here in Orange County, we really are, there's other counties around us, Dutchess County, Westchester County, Ulster County. They have actually invested in and tried to find ways to address the housing crisis. We're really behind here in Orange County. And I believe that there are ways that we can step up and actually invest, because we have such a significant surplus in this county in our budget.
Absolutely.
And I feel like there are ways that we can actually invest in housing solutions and put policies forward. And so that is my push. And I was able to really be part of the leadership in creating that task force in the county government, and literally being part of writing helping to write the resolution that went on the floor that we voted on in the legislature, to get that housing task force created. And I'm really proud of that because,
as you should be.
Again, I'm part of, the minority caucus. I'm part of one of 5 Democrats out of 21 legislators. So when you're able to not just be part of literally, writing a resolution, but then to be able to get everyone on board to vote for what you are proposing, along with, other legislators, I mean, that in and of itself just speaks to, when you were talking about that learning curve, the reality is you have to understand that there's a way in which, if you want to be effective, you have to learn how are you going to show up? How are you going to be able to be effective? Well, that requires you, again, building relationships, making yourself uncomfortable, understanding that even if you don't agree with someone on everything, you can find common ground. And I think that's so much of what's missing right nowadays. And the last thing I'll say for now, in terms of accomplishments, so in the legislature, there are committees that all the legislators are assigned to.
Right.
So I'm on public safety and emergency services. I'm on human services, health and mental health, and rules committee. Well, I was actually appointed chair of the human services committee.
Wow.
In the legislature this year.
Nice.
Why is that significant? Democrats do not get appointed to leadership positions in the legislature because, again, we are outnumbered. So historically, only Republicans have held those leadership positions. I didn't ask for it. I didn't seek it. I got a phone call saying, you've been appointed to this. And I was like, oh.
You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Part of it was because I was part of efforts to oust the previous chairwoman of the legislature, who was someone that just led with really divisive, politically driven, self-serving ways. And so, our caucus and other members of the Republican caucus, we actually came together to vote her out. And the chairman who's in now, yes, he's a Republican, but he is very much about hearing everyone out and trying to, again, just honor perspective. So he appointed me to the role. The Human Services Committee in the legislature has oversight of our Department of Social Services in Orange County, our Veteran Services, our Employment and Training Office, our Office for the Aging, and the Housing Task Force that I helped to create.
Wow.
So
it's all full circle.
It's full circle. And when I was pushing for the creation of this task force along with another legislator, I didn't know I was going to be chairing this committee. You know what I mean? I didn't know, but it just all came together. And again, it just speaks to my character. It speaks to the fact that, by the way, I've never compromised on my values. I've never folded on what I believe in and just how I show up and what my beliefs are, political or otherwise. So it's not about that. I've never compromised or wavered on that. But I've always shown up and been integral and honest and just done my job.
And it's gotten you. And it kind of also pays forward to what you said before. When you said, when you were getting those awards, you didn't think 9 years prior you'd be back getting an award. When you did that committee, you didn't think you'd be appointed at some point. It's the same thing. And things always come back full circle. So with all that being that you accomplished in that amount of time, if reelected, what are you hoping to do with the next 4 years?
This is Mike Williams, host of Honest Hour. Today's episode is brought to you by 10 Toes, which was established in 2011 by Mr. 10 Toes himself, Darren March. You face in this lifetime 10 Toes is a brand of resilience. It's a brand of dedication, sacrifice, and courage. It's a principle, commitment, and most importantly, it's a lifestyle. Wear this brand, your journey is a mission and communities that are founded with integrity, perseverance, and authenticity. 10 Toes offers a variety of top quality clothing items for all seasons and reasons. The latest, hottest tees, hoodies, hats, coats, and more. Be sure to check them out, shop, and support a Black-owned business with a cause. Be sure to use our partner code COCN to get 10% off orders of $75 or more, and always remember to stay 10 toes. Thanks for supporting our sponsors. Back to the show.
So if reelected, I really just plan to continue the progress. I plan to continue being a courageous voice for us. Yes, for the district I represent, city and town of Newburgh, but really for all the residents of this county, because when we vote in the legislature, we're not just voting for our districts only. Most of our votes impact every resident in this county, across this county. I'm committed to holding government accountable and to keeping government transparent, because again, we are in service to the people, not in service of our whatever contracts and whatever deals and whatever other things, other agendas that other people have. So I'm committed to standing up to that, to continue to speak truth to power. I'm committed to continuing to be just a leader and a voice for, again, this housing crisis that we're in.
Absolutely.
And trying to push for the county to respond in the ways that it can, given its jurisdiction and purview as a county government, because every level of government has its, where it starts and ends, right? So
Absolutely.
The county can't do everything, but there are certain things that I'm optimistic that we can continue to do. Transportation, right now transportation is free. Actually, the bus is free in Middletown and Newburgh.
Nice.
But I recognize that there are other things that are still missing. Like, for example, we need to expand our bus routes. We need to be able to continue to connect people to other employment opportunities. The bus shelters, and most of the bus shelters are, they're just, first of all, some of them are non-existent, and they're just in complete shambles. And so, we're checking in with our planning department and keeping up with the progress on that, because I get asked about it all the time.
Absolutely.
People need to be protected from the elements when they're waiting for the bus. And so it's bigger than just like, yay, free buses. That is absolutely big
and a good start.
But we still need to address the rest of our public, transportation challenges. I think also in terms of economic development in this county, there's a big push for warehouses and warehouses and warehouses. And, I on one hand, yes, we're all for job creation, but I think that we can really be more equitable in terms of how we tap into our economic development. Housing is part of our economic development, by the way. Workforce development is part of economic development. So we have to be able to look at this holistically and have people who will push for and advocate in ways that hold those folks at those tables accountable. That when, it's not just about building warehouses all over Orange County. What other kinds of industries, what other kinds of opportunities can we bring into the area?
Absolutely.
What other relationships can we leverage? And how are we also preparing people for success, right? And so I've been a huge advocate and proponent of the SUNY Orange budget, because SUNY Orange is bigger than just getting degrees. They have technical programs, certificate programs. They have a lot of different programs for folks. So it's not just traditional, I got to get my associates. You can get a certification. You can really walk out with all kinds of different opportunities from SUNY Orange. And the president is very forward-thinking, innovative. And so I've been a huge supporter of the SUNY Orange budget. I want to continue to be a huge supporter of the SUNY Orange budget. In terms of public safety, I have supported all public safety measures because public safety is important to all of us. We all want safety in our communities, right? And so I have established good rapport, with folks in public safety, the DA, the sheriff, again, in the spirit of community, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what party we're part of. I'm there in service
To the people.
the people. And I have been, on the record, supportive of public service measures, funding, programming that I believe in and that I think are important to keep our community safe across the county. And then when it comes to just our green spaces, our county parks, I have firmly supported and stood by all funding and initiatives for improving and enhancing our county parks. I want to continue to do that. I want to continue to also work with our elected officials here in the city of Newburgh to, continue to. I've been able to deliver $10,000 to the city of Newburgh specifically. I represent city and town, but I've specifically been able to deliver $10,000 to the city of Newburgh for our Parks and Recreation Department.
Wow.
And so I want to continue to be that partner in government for the city and town. I want to be able to continue to show up for us and to allow folks to know that there's someone there that, I open myself up all the time. People ask me to meet with them all the time for different reasons, different walks of life. I'm more than happy to make myself available to anyone, whether you just want to learn more about what does county government mean, what does it do, whether you want to understand what I'm working on, the kinds of coalitions I've been able to build. I've been a huge supporter of county union workers. Last year, I helped to mobilize and organize an action where folks from the community came and gave public comments to support their bargaining. They were in the middle of contract negotiations and they were finding themselves in a bit of a hard time. So I called the press, I called the people. The people came out. They came out to Goshen. They spoke in support of union workers. The press ran stories. The next week, that contract was signed, it was ratified, and they had a fair agreement. And I'm not taking credit for the contract being signed, but what I'm saying is that I helped to put public spotlight onto it. And I have had that working relationship with our unions, because I respect the labor movement. I respect our union workers, and I believe in prevailing wages and just unionized work. And, the last thing I'll say is I look forward to continue to stand alongside different advocacy groups, different coalitions that stand in support of our working class families, our LGBTQ community, our immigrant community, our tenants, women's reproductive rights, our reproductive rights and reproductive justice in general. I am unwavering to my values. I'm going to stand on that no matter what, re-election time or not. I'm going to always stand firm in what I believe in what I'm rooted in, and the fact that I believe in people being able to be who they are, to express themselves in the way that they want to express themselves in. And I believe that so much of the, what really makes the fabric of this country is its diversity.
Absolutely.
Is the fact that we have people from all walks of life that contribute to this country, not just through economy, that's one thing, but through its culture. Right, through the way in which our communities are shaped. And so I am always going to support people being able to feel safe in being who they are, whether it's whether it's our LGBTQ community, whether it's standing for reproductive rights, whether it's standing for against corporate interests. And for working class people, and it's not to say that doesn't mean that I'm not representing or that I'm not wanting to be inclusive of everyone. What I'm saying though is we have a pervasive problem in this country. Forget our corner of the world.
Right. Just
in this country where special interest groups, corporate interests, and money have plagued our democracy and our government. And unfortunately, that is why, simply put, we see so many issues around the way in which certain policies and certain things just don't move. Right? Because politicians are sold out. Well, the fundraising and who we take money from, that's public. That's public information. New York State law makes it so that anyone can look up who you've taken money from. And anyone that looks up who I take money from, who I've taken money from in my campaigning, it's always been from the people, from unions, from values aligned organizations, never special interests, never corporate, never, I want to know, and I always want to be committed to knowing that I can show up and that I know that I can vote how I want, speak up how I want, and advocate how I want, because I'm standing on my values and my principles and my integrity, and I haven't sold myself out in any way. And so truly, we don't have time right now to not have local elected representation that's not going to be supportive of our diverse communities, that's not going to meet this moment. Because in this moment, what we're seeing is not normal. It's unprecedented. And there's a lot under threat right now. Our funding, our services, our freedoms. Like, we're seeing a lot under threat right now, and we don't need leadership that's going to be, business as usual. We need leadership that's going to actually stand on business and that's going to be able to not just call it out and talk about it, but that's going to be able to find ways at the local level to keep our people safe, because we keep each other safe.
Absolutely, looking out for one another. And we see it, like I had a friend just say, they pulled federal funding from his school. We're seeing it, and it's happening
100%.
in all different levels, all different places, and people aren't paying attention.
100%. And to that, I would say to folks, not just for me and my race, my reelection, in general, do your research
Yourself.
before you go vote. Just do your research. Look up the candidates. Really make sure that when you're when you're going to the polls, that you feel confident about who you're voting for, and that you understand who you're voting for. It's important. Many of you may see me at your door soon. I will, we're outside. Okay, we are
soon as
outside.
Today.
As soon as today. And that's probably for me, that is my favorite part of all this. It's being able to be in community with folks and to be able to take what I'm hearing and then work with other people in and out of government. Okay, because it's not just about government relationships. Like, that's obviously a huge part of it. But we don't accomplish things in silos. We don't accomplish things just by being in government. Like, I have to be able to build those relationships outside that will help me help others be connected to different things,
inside,
in different ways. And the other thing I'll say as well, we have a school board election coming up in May. It's a critical one here for the Newburgh and Lawrence City School District. I really urge everyone. This year we have local elections, right? Here in Orange County, we have local elections, your city councils, your town boards, mayors, town supervisors, county executive, county legislators, the whole nine. But in May, we have a critical school board election, and I need everyone to get out and vote. Please do your research. There's a lot that's been going on with our school district, unfortunately, and we really do need to get good people in there that are going to put the students in the district first. So please do your research, and please get out in May for the school board elections as well.
And it's sad because there's not people who want to do the right thing by the kids either. Friend of mine, Sade Burks, always advocating and involved with that, because it's important. It's important, people. The kids are important, especially if your kid is in the Newburgh and Large City School District, as two of mine are. Like small things. Like, they do things that just aggravate me now. Like, for example, my kids had a dance yesterday, but they couldn't go because they ran out of tickets. And I'm like, since when has not every student been able to go to a dance? It's, if you want to go, you get a ticket, you go. They ran out. I'm like, that's unacceptable to me. you know,
Mm-hmm.
or how I remember my one daughter was struggling with school. So the teachers call me and they say, okay, well, I'm like, I'd like a conference. They're like, okay, we give us a time. I said, I'm done with work at 2:30. They're like, oh, we leave at 2:15. Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you serious? You really can't wait another half hour to talk about your student struggling?
Mm-hmm.
Just like you have a job, I have a job. I'm working until 2:30. I can't just drop what I'm doing to have this conversation with you. But it's something that needs to be had. So it's things like that. Teachers not going the extra mile. And I know part of it's the district. Part of it is the
No.
district. But the other part of it is, I feel like a lot of teachers, not all teachers, they don't want to go the extra mile anymore. Because now and part of it is the no child left behind. They may feel like they really don't have to. Because the child's gonna go forward anyway. The lowest they can get is a 55. That's the kids don't have to do the work. They don't have to show up and you're gonna give them a 55. So those things is what frustrates me. But I'm so outspoken, and when I get passionate, sometimes I get a little mean, get a little nasty. So I just stay out of the public eye. Just like, no, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. So the way I end each show is with two things. The first is a positive ending message, which is when you say something positive and uplifting to the audience. But before that, I've added this season, tell everyone something about yourself that they don't know.
Something that they don't know. Oh, that's.
And it don't have to be nothing crazy. You could tell me you like to put hot sauce in ice water.
No.
And drink it.
Ooh, I have a fun, well, for me, it's fun.
Hey,
For other
go
people,
ahead.
It might be boring, but.
Hey, listen.
Something fun and random about me is I am, in my mind, I'm a barista. At home, I have literally put together my own little coffee shop of sorts. So I can make everything, right? Like lattes, cappuccinos. I have French press. I have pour over. I grind my coffee beans. I'm a coffee lover. I do coffee tastings. It's my thing. And so I have become slowly but surely a little self-taught barista at home. So always happy to make someone a cup of coffee because that's my thing. I love dabbling. I like making my own syrups. I make cold foam. I've gotten pretty into the coffee thing for sure. I have, different roasts for different times or, different flavors.
Wow.
I have a whole, like I said, I have a actual mini barista set up at home. So
hell, I would have had you bring a cup with you. And the last thing is just look into the camera, give them that positive ending message that's uplifting and spirited.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Whew. All right. I feel like this is for myself too, but
hey, go for it.
All right. So right now we are living in, let me start that over. Right now we are in uncertain times. There's a lot of rhetoric that is surrounding us. There's so much that comes at us every day. It's this headline and that article. But what I want us all to keep in mind is that where the change and the influence and the love really happens is in and with community. So take care first and foremost of yourselves. Don't forget to center joy and rest in your life now more than ever. Continue to be unapologetic and take up space in whatever that looks like and means for you. And also remember, community is where it's at. Be there for one another, show up for one another, create those safe and joyous spaces. those spaces that are going to get us through anything that comes our way. We don't know what the next 4 years will look like, but we do know that we are surrounded by constant information, misinformation, disinformation, a lot of things that make it hard to discern sometimes what is true, what isn't. What is true is, again, community is where it's at. So look for your people, center your joy, center your rest, be unapologetically you, and take up space in the world.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Best of luck. Keep
Thank
being
you.
great. And I want to thank all you for all your support and watching this podcast. Check out all the other shows on the COC network. Check out all our sponsors. And we will be back with another guest next week. Peace.